Thank you very much. Before we begin, Tan Sri, Assalamualaikum everyone, dan salam sejahtera. Sedikit biografi Tan Sri. I know everybody is looking forward to meet you today and to listen to your experience as well as your sharing session so that all of us can learn from you. And for your information, this is actually AKEPT program in collaboration with UMK under the program called UniLeeb, Universiti Leaders for Entrepreneurship Education. But we also invite public to join. Seems like it's going to become a full house. So before we begin, sedikit biografi Tan Sri. Everybody knows Tan Sri is the 10th Vice Chancellor of UM since 2008 sehingga 2013. Dan beliau juga merupakan founder, president dan CEO of Multimedia University and serving multimedia for 11 years. And also he's before this also CEO for Unity College International, I think founder as well, I suppose. Dan banyak lagi lah pengalaman Tan Sri dalam higher education. And currently he is a chairman for lembaga LPU for UPM. Okay, so that's how vast is actually his experience in leadership for higher education. So without further ado, Tan Sri, actually we give 1 hour for you to speak on your experience, your whatever advice, your dilemma being as leaders. And also we open for another hour for the participants to ask questions. So participant can ask question personally to Tan Sri. I know many of you Miss Tan Sri, kalau nak introduce yourself personally, you can ask through this Google Meet, as well as you can also write down at the chat. So our moderators will read your question. Okay. I think kita allow Tan Sri untuk mulakan sesi. Silakan Tan Sri, the floor is yours.
Okay. Sound that ada. Okay. Now, first of all, thank you very much, Prof. Nik Mairan, also to AKEPT dan juga UMT for inviting me to give this sharing session. And also welcome to everybody who are online watching me right now. I must admit that I feel very awkward sitting down and giving a talk because I've never done this before. Because normally when I give a talk, I will stand up and I try to be interactive. But now I'm sitting down, so I'll try my best. Of course, this is bulan puasa juga, so in the afternoon it's a little sleepy. But nevertheless, I have some slides to share with you and some ideas on what a leader should be in managing higher learning institutions. Next slide. I'd like to start off by pointing out certain very important points about being an academic. So I'm putting on my next slide now. Next slide. Okay, I hope you can see this slide. The title is First Principle of University Leadership Success. If any one of you academics, especially young leaders, you are thinking of taking up a position after some time to be a head of department or to be a dean and so on, let me just remind you that actually our first duty of being appointed as an academic of a university is not those positions. Before you ever attempt to become a dean or a leader, a VC and so on, please build up your academic base. Make sure when you're appointed as an academic, you are actually one academic who actually performs. You are able to do your research well, you're able to do your teaching well, you're able to connect with industry, you're able to bring to society your expertise, your experience, and so on. You must not start off by thinking that you want to be a dean or a head and so on. So that's the first thing I must remind all of you. Secondly, you must actually support academic excellence in your institution. Do not be among those who are there to prevent the achievement of academic excellence. This means that you must be an agent to bring excellence in teaching, in research, in connection with industry, in serving the nation dan sebagainya. You must support this wholeheartedly and support it strongly. And thirdly, also, when you are an academic and when you want to rise to become a leader, you must help to develop other people as well. It must not be just yourself. So you must try your best to make sure that others also develop. Okay, and hopefully that one day they will even become leaders of institutions and so on. So these three things we must be very clear. Never make the position of an admin job in an institution to be your dream. Never. You must be someone who wants to make sure that you're recognized in your field, that you're able to do high quality research, you're able to do high quality teaching and so on. This is above everything. So do not ever crave for an admin job. Do not campaign for you to get a certain position in the system. Again, and another thing, do not fight to get Datuk Sheep, Tan Sri Sheep, and all this, please. Because I don't understand why there are some who really wants this title. And I think this title should come when they should come. And hopefully that some of these titles come to you even without you asking or expecting it. I think it should be like that rather than you every year attempt by filling up the form, asking people to support you dan sebagainya. And lastly, be a real person, stand on your ground, stand on your feet. Do not try to rub shoulders in order to be recognized dan sebagainya. Let your contributions, let your whatever you do be recognized by itself, rather than you want to mix around such that people know you and then you get whatever you want. Okay, so I like to start off my talk this afternoon by just laying out certain of these fundamentals that I want to share with everybody, because the idea of coming into a university and become academic is not to get positions, but is to create the academic excellence within the system, and in the first place, academic excellence in yourself. Next. Now, talking about university leadership, I think these are some of the main points that I hope is in the person before they can rise to become a leader. So again, I want to re-emphasize the fact that you must have a proven academic and research track record, right? We want to see your ISI journal papers. We should see your citations, your age index, the research groups that you have set up, the funds that you have brought in, the international networking that you have established. So all this must be seen, must be recognized. And not only that, that you are a great teacher, that students like your teaching and love to attend your lectures. and then you are able to connect with industry, you are able to connect with society, and to bring whatever you you discover to society and try to make sure that this is useful to industry and so on. So this is the first thing. One shouldn't try to be a leader without these fundamentals in you. Secondly, I like to stress this very, very strongly, ethics and professionalism. One should not try to do things where you actually exhibit poor ethics in terms of your work. You use other people's work and claim it's like your work. And not only that, when you are in position of power, you abuse those positions. You make decisions which favor certain groups that has connection with you, that support you, and so on. In fact, if possible, find an opportunity not to be in a decision to make, to be in a position not to make decision when it comes to tenders and so on. You know, stay away if you can, such that there is no conflict of interest dan sebagainya. This is very important, and I think it is extremely important that we create a generation of intellectuals. We create a young generation of graduates from our university where they hate corruption, they hate all this embezzlement, they hate all this hanky-panky. This is very, very important. We must not forgive people for being corrupted. So I think it's very important. This is something that we must never compromise. Thirdly, we need leaders who are non-conformists. Non-conformist doesn't mean that you always break the law, you break the rules, but we need people who goes out of the way to come up with new ideas, such that those ideas can bring up the system to a higher level. You make sure that things can perform better. You can gain much more that from those new ideas. I am not saying at all that being non-conformist that you actually disrupt everything and very often things stall when you are around as sebagainya, tidak. But you are one who take things to a higher level with new ideas. This is very important because we do not want leaders where we can see their ideas that nothing much comes out of their leadership, you see. Fourthly, of course, we need people with high energy, people who are very hardworking, who are never tired of doing their work, bringing changes, performing better dan sebagainya. And we need people who set their own KPIs higher and higher, such that it will bring the university to be very competitive and they achieve new milestones all the time. So we need a person who is very much performance driven. Fifth, highly courageous and risk takers. To be honest, this is extremely important because if we have leaders who are not willing to be brave, to do things, to face the board, to face authorities in order to bring up the organization, then you cannot really be a great leader. You must be willing to take risks. Okay, risk taking is extremely important, which means that even if you have to lose your position, your job, but because you want to take the system higher, the system better dan sebagainya, you're willing to stick up your neck. Sticking up your neck could mean you losing your position, you becoming unpopular dan sebagainya, but all in the name of bringing positive changes, bringing higher level of achievement dan sebagainya. We need leaders like that. All right, and I will give you examples of some of this when I was Vice Chancellor and President dan sebagainya. Next is being a leader, you will always find resistance, you will find problems before you. But despite all this, you must be able to bring the system, the institution forward, despite all the resistance. You cannot give excuses why you cannot do this, why you cannot achieve that. Because at the end of the day, many years after you have left your job, people will evaluate how you have performed, and people will know what you have done right, what you have done wrong, and people will make up their mind about your actual track record. So giving excuses doesn't help, because nobody will ever want to remember what are the excuses you gave. There's no point. Most important is achieve the milestones, achieve the KPIs that you have set. I put the statement there, never worry to lose position, and I sincerely mean this, that if you have to take certain action, you have to do certain things, it could mean losing your job. Well, a real leader will be prepared to lose their job. And lastly, business venture and entrepreneurship. We are living in an era where increasingly leaders have to be much more entrepreneurial, much more willing and brave to go into business dan sebagainya. While we want the leaders to be really good in their academic work, in their research dan sebagainya, but I really think now, looking at the current world situation, looking at our own the challenges in our country, especially with the pandemic dan sebagainya, we need leaders who are entrepreneurs, leaders who can bring money into the system. I really disagree with whoever says that it is not the job of vice chancellors, or it is not the job of board members to find money. This is absolutely wrong, and I think the government should look into this issue seriously, because often I've heard from board members dan sebagainya, they don't think that it is their job to bring in money. So KPIs I think should be set in terms of setting up endowments dan sebagainya by the board, by the university management dan sebagainya, but we must create a system, we must create policies dan sebagainya that will enable them to actually work to get the funds for the university. It cannot be like before. Then, which also means that I'm saying that the current structure of the university boards dan sebagainya has to change drastically also. Especially when we talk about trying to amend AUKU dan sebagainya, you know, and coming up with a new act for both public and private university. I think these are certain aspects that we must really review, so such that it will enable university management and board members to look more into being entrepreneurial and bringing in funds into the university. Next slide. Now, I just want to, because this is sharing session, when I put up these slides, it does not mean that I'm trying to show off what I was able to do, but just entirely sharing, you know. I'm very worried to put up these things. Tapi I think by putting up this thing, I can share a few of the problems that I had and what are the challenges that I've go through. Yeah? You see, I started off as an academic in 82, but by 1992, I was already appointed full professor and as Dean of Engineering in UM. Okay, it is quite well known those days that the engineering faculty UM is one of the oldest faculties in the university, alongside with the Faculty of Arts and Social Science, and it has been frequently said at that time that this is the hardest faculty to change, people not willing to venture into new programs dan sebagainya. So knowing that those were the problems at that time, and as Dean of Engineering, I actually introduced this set of programs there. Before that, there were the 4 traditional disciplines: electrical, mechanical, civil, and chemical. But I introduced this new set of engineering programs, and of course, you all can imagine the kind of resistance I get at the department level, at the faculty level. All kinds of excuses are given why we need more time to introduce this program, because we don't have expertise lah, we don't have money to create new labs dan sebagainya. But I don't want to listen to any of that. All I want to know is that we have to progress, we have to bring in new programs, and I push the agenda, and while pushing I have to quarrel with some professors dan sebagainya. At the end it was done. Okay, and not only that, currently there is a Faculty of Built Environment, the UM, and it actually started from the Faculty of Engineering. And I still remember starting off 2 programs, Bachelor Architecture and Bachelor Quantity Surveying. But because, you know, the engineering people at that point of time was not very happy to prepare the syllabus for the architecture program, the quantity surveying program. I still remember I worked with the secretary of the Persatuan Architect Malaysia, and I said, look, I'm not going to hire anybody. I am going to personally come up with the syllabus for the Bachelor Architecture program. I actually wrote it actually. And how did I do it? By putting together several syllabuses from different universities, and I submitted there. And actually it was finally approved anyway. So I find that very interesting, because I'm not an architect. I don't know what I was writing, but I put together a syllabus, and also the other syllabus that we put together of quantity surveying. Of course, I get the help of the Persatuan Architect Malaysia dan sebagainya. And finally, it is a faculty itself today. So, if I were to listen to all the objections of faculty members that we don't have staff to, well, I don't know what will be the form of the Faculty of Engineering today, but of course, as you know, I must tell you that the Faculty of Engineering UM has produced many highly cited researchers, by the way. Not only that, the Faculty of Engineering UM was a few years ago rated as the 10th best in the world. So I'm happy that in the old days, we were thought to be hard-headed dan sebagainya, but we actually performed quite well. So Alhamdulillah, knowing the fact that I have to revamp and I have to bring changes and I have to modernize the faculty, finally we got new programs. Not only that, we got lots of money juga from the government and from industry. I will show you some slides to show that we actually got a lot of money from the government, the engineering faculty itself. That's why we actually went up in our ranking dan sebagainya. Next slide. You see, when I was the Dean of Engineering for 3 years, then suddenly one day my boss, the Vice Chancellor, iaitu Tan Sri Abdullah Sanusi Ahmad, called me up. And I remember at that point of time, the Deputy VC for Development was finishing off the term. And he called me and told me, Ghauth, I want you to be the next Deputy Vice Chancellor for Development. He called me. So all of a sudden, I never expected this. And he told me, I've been scratching the bottom to the barrel. That word tu kan, I never forget. And he wants me to be the Deputy VC. So okay. And actually, I was not long in the job. I remember it was 1 year, 8 months only. And what really he wanted me to do, at that point of time, has been given quite a lot of development budget, if I'm not mistaken, close to 200 million, but the spending was very slow. Projects was slow to take off, to be launched dan sebagainya. So when I was brought on board, that was what I did. I really pushed, and I launched all the project that was already planned to be done. I pushed all of them. I pushed the estate office engineers, QS, and so on to support this agenda. I disciplined many contractors was trying to cheat the system dan sebagainya, and alhamdulillah, we were able to bring back the 200 million ringgit that was taken away by the ministry because we didn't spend it earlier. So again, what I'm saying here is, when you are given the task, in this case, I was given the task by the Vice Chancellor, Tan Sri Abdullah Sanusi Ahmad, please launch the project, get back the money. But because you are able to do this, the ministry was sympathetic and they gave you back all the money. And not only that, you get all the projects done, you see. So at the end of the day, it's all about pushing and making sure things work out. Okay, rather than we have to wait for this, wait for that. It doesn't work. Life doesn't work that way. You have to be a driver if you want to be a leader. Okay. And I still remember one classic case. I just put one example di sini, where I remember the Chancellor of the University, Sultan Azlan Shah, was mentioning that we need to produce more IT graduates at that point of time. And it turned out that at that point of time, the biggest problem was of capacity. There was not much space dan sebagainya. And I actually remembered what was said by the Tuanku Chancellor at that point of time. And after hearing that, I actually wrote a note to the Vice Chancellor, Tan Sri Abdullah Sanusi. I told him, Dato', at that time he was a Dato', let me build an additional facility for the Faculty of Computer Science in He said, sila urus, and I took that, yes, he agrees for me to do it. I actually launched this project without any budget. There was no budget at all to start off this project, to call the architect, QS, and to call the contractors and okay. There was no budget. But I just push it, and interestingly, at the end of the day, the ministry gave us the budget actually. We started off launching it without any budget, without any approval, but it was later approved. And actually, I still remember that years after I left, there was a audit done on all this. So one of the things the audit noticed was that the acquisition of this new set of buildings for the Faculty of Computer Science was not done in a proper order, where budget must be there dan sebagainya. So I was actually given a strict reminder that this must not happen. But by that time, I was already in MMU lah, you know. So anyway, I was happy to have done it because, well, the building is there today anyway. So for young leaders and sebagainya, I hope by showing you some of these things that I've done before, please, if you really want to be an effective leader, be ahead of others, push your agenda, make sure what you do is of benefit to the university, to the country, and you must not have personal agenda in this. Because if you don't have personal agenda, if you don't have any conflict of interest, nobody can cash you for anything, you know. Ultimately, it's only for the institution. But I'm not suggesting that you must be crooked, okay? Never at all. But you do because you want things to get things done dan sebagainya. But sometimes when I talk to people and they say, what if suddenly people catch us doing it wrongly dan sebagainya, I say, well, if people catch you, you answer for it lah, you know. Because at the end of the day, If you do it well, if people recognize what you do, well, credit for you. If you do wrongly because of your foolishness, you answer. You know, so this is the basic principle. But so far, in my life, I've never been questioned by SPRM, police, never. You know, so again, for young leaders who are watching this, you know, your mind should be that you're always trying to get things done, sorted out, and bring up your system, your institution up to capacity so that you can be competitive and so on. Next slide. Now, I just want to share one or two experiences when I was in Multimedia University. This was the first private university owned by Telecom, and like what I said earlier, never apply for any jobs dan sebagainya. So actually it is true. Suddenly this thing comes to me. I still remember the vice president of Telecom and his general manager, senior GM, came to ask to have lunch with me. And suddenly they proposed they want to take me as the CEO of, at that time they call it Universiti Telecom, not Multimedia University, but a year later I changed it to Multimedia University. Okay, since they really thought that I could do the job. Actually, I don't know why they chose me, but they offered me, okay. Then I talked to my boss, the vice chancellor, and he said, yeah, he thinks that I can do the job, go ahead. So I actually went on to Universiti Telecom on initially on a secondment basis, but immediately I went there. I wrote to Dato' Abdullah Sanusi that I want to be released and I want to get early retirement. So actually, finally, I was given early retirement lah, at the age of 40. I became president of Multimedia University at the age of 40. Now, over the period of about 12 years that I was president of MMU, the student number peaked at 22,000 students, both postgraduate and undergraduate. The staff numbers close to 2,000. We built two campuses, Melaka and Cyberjaya. The Cyberjaya campus was a brand new campus. Okay, the Melaka campus, we did a lot of renovations. It was at one time the top ranked Malaysian private university, and it was already profit making from the third year of operation. Now, what would be the challenges in a private university at that time? I am not saying that the challenges of a private university today is the same as what it was 20 years ago. Tidak. There are bound to be changes, to be differences. The biggest problem actually I have with being the president of MMU was trying to make the parent company, Telecom Malaysia, understand what the academic culture and what the academic system is. For example, very often when I want to send staff to go on seminars or conferences abroad and sebagainya, I have a lot of objections from Telecom, because Telecom says normally those who are GM level or senior executive level that can go for seminars dan sebagainya. But I said all academics have to attend conferences dan sebagainya in order for them to exchange findings, exchange knowledge dan sebagainya. So this is one culture which is so difficult to make Telecom understand, but again, like everything else, I force it on Telecom. Now, because of this sort of thing that, you know, my relationship with the Telecom management is what I would describe as a love-hate relationship. Sometimes they love me, most of the time they hate me. But I have no choice. Because if I don't do that, then we will need to to just accommodate ourselves and fit into the telecom punya system, where the telecommunication system is a telecommunication business, which is quite different from the education business. So to do this, you really have to be tough, because here you have the parent company who actually gave you money to be set up dan sebagainya, and you are most of the time trying to rebel, you know. So but there's no choice. So a lot of time you have to have thick skin, muka tebal, to bring along to suggest all these differences dan sebagainya. But alhamdulillah, at that point of time, I think we were able to perform such that the student numbers went up to 22,000. By the way, the number has gone down significantly for various reasons today. As you know, a lot of private institutions pun having problems. I think it is down by 40% at the moment, you know, which also does mean that there'll be it will have affected the cash flow dan sebagainya lah. But that is the current president's problem lah. But I was happy that when I set up this institution from nothing but to a point where it became the top private university, and along with that, there were several individuals that end up becoming vice chancellor, become presidents themselves, and I think all of you would know Tan Sri Professor Chua Hian Tek. He was for a long time the president of UTAR, but who has just retired last year. And Professor Yu Hong Tat, who is the current president of UTAR. Professor Shahrin Sahib, who became the vice chancellor of UTAM. Professor Lee Zawei, he is currently the president of College University TAR. Dr. Abu Hassan Ismail, he went off to establish his own institution, and I have many more which I cannot list here. So I think those who were with me from the early days, I think they saw how they can perform as a leader, and I'm glad that they are continuing to make the contributions in other institutions today. Thanks. I want to pick up a few memorable events in MMU for the benefit of everyone, yeah. Because let me tell you, there are a few occasions in MMU where I was already preparing a resignation letter because of certain problems where I felt that the best way out was only to resign lah. But it never came to that. By the grace of God, I survived one after another. And I still remember the most unforgettable incident was this issue about median of instruction. And this was basically a clash with my very, very, very good friend today, where at that point he was the Minister of Education, where he actually directed all the private institutions to only use the Malay language. He doesn't even allow English to be used. And I pointed out to him that this will be a problem for us because we will have problem to attract international students and sebagainya lah. I will not want to go into detail on how I sort it out, but finally I have to actually use my chancellor, which is Tun Siti Asmah. When I was the president of MMU, Tun Siti Asmah was the chancellor throughout, and this problem put me in a very difficult position because I really don't want to use the chancellor punya influence, but at the end I really have to tell her, and she was willing to help, and she said the only way to help is to bring this matter because it's a matter of policy to the Prime Minister lah. So because of that, I got into big trouble with the minister lah, because I brought it to the Prime Minister basically. So he was very upset with me, but I felt I have no choice. I still remember that meeting when he told all of us, I think 20 IPTS CEOs, to follow this instruction, and I told the minister that no, we cannot do that. And after a few times I kept objecting to it, and he told me I'm a hard-headed person, you know. And when I told him that I would have to refer this to Dr. Mahathir, because Dr. Mahathir, the Multimedia University is at the heart of the MSc, the Multimedia Super Corridor. So I really have to get his views on this. And he said, yes, I will myself see the PM, he told me. But of course, you all can imagine problems started from there. And for 3 years, I really had a hard time with the ministry. But all those are over. The minister is one of my best friends. Whenever we meet, we hug each other dan sebagainya. So don't think that we are enemies, tidak. But we were into this as a matter of professional, in the line of professional duty lah. And then in the development of academic programs, because Multimedia University needs to have programs, we need to show the country, to the world, that we have many new programs dan sebagainya. I could count that we were producing new programs, something like 1 new program every 2 weeks. And I literally tell you that it is like that. So how did I do it? Well, please don't really quote me. There's no such thing as board of studies dan sebagainya. I remember there's one program, just to give you an example. This is called a Bachelor of Financial Engineering, where I told the Dean of IT, Professor Lee Po An at that time, the Dean of IT in the Melaka campus. I told Prof, what are the new programs today? What are the most current? And among it, he mentioned financial engineering is a current discipline, and he thinks that would be a good program to offer. I say, Prof, get it done. I say within 1 month, I want this program to be up and running. You know? He thought I was crazy for saying that sort of thing, but I say, Prof, I'm serious. Get it done. The program, the Bachelor of Financial Engineering program is up and running today. It is among the toughest course, but it is among the most highly subscribed program. And of course, another program is the Bachelor of Law program, where MMU is the private institution that has a law program where it's given the exemption from CLP. Okay, so I'm not saying that the way to get programs done is still you can follow my way, but it is all about, if you think that person knows about it, you think the person can do the job, empower him and tell him, please get it done. Itu saja, you know. So that's my style. Sometimes you have to wait for this and wait for that, kind of slow lah, you know. But of course, at that point of time, we were the first private university, so things came on board is faster lah, you know. But of course, when we first started our program, and this is also one of the reasons why the minister was very unhappy with me, was because we ran program without getting approval. And that's why at one point of time, the minister actually rejected all the programs, even though I know from Lembaga Akreditasi Negara at that time, is called LAN. The LAN boss told me, Prof, actually all the programs are approved, but then the minister, you know, tak setuju lah nak bagi MMU. So this is where the problem is. But all those programs are up and running anyway today. So but to get all those going, you have to go through all this pain. But at the end of the day, I'm happy that MMU was leading in terms of offering new programs and sebagainya at that time. And I still remember another issue where, you see, sometimes when you try to do all this, you really step on the foot of others. People are not happy, and all kinds of horrible things they will do to you. But do not be discouraged by that. In fact, I have a case where I still remember that I actually terminated the service of one senior academic because of certain unethical practices. I didn't even convene the disciplinary hearing dan sebagainya, when I get confirmation that he has done it and I saw the proof, as I told the director of human resource, please draft a termination letter. I want to sign it this afternoon. And I actually terminated the professor, and actually I ended up being sued. MMU and myself was sued for about more than 10 million ringgit lah for that termination. Well, as I said earlier, when you do something, if you are brave to do something, you must face whatever consequences that comes along with it. So I have to sort it out, and actually at the end of the day, the thing was settled, the legal suit was settled, but to get the board to agree on the word settlement was the hardest problem to me. It is not really settling the issue with this senior academic, because when this matter was brought to the board members had got so many diverging ideas on what to do dan sebagainya. And the worst thing is the board members, some board members were saying, shall we investigate the president himself? Why is he not following procedure dan sebagainya? There should have been a disciplinary hearing dan sebagainya. You know, that I cannot accept. Entah by the grace of God, the chairman of the board, Tan Sri Osman Yop Abdullah, at that point of time came up with a brilliant solution after about 2 hours of debate. He said, Ghauth, you go and negotiate. See what he wants, you know. And I negotiated with this particular academic, and I said, no, whatever you want, that 10 million all is no go. We don't have the money, we'll never give you. Then he knows that he has to go down. Finally, it went down to 6 months of salary saja. So the board was happy to accept offer of paying 6 months salary, and that's it. He went off. But we prove a point that we do not take ethical issues lightly. We are prepared to throw away anybody who actually cheat the system. So this is the main thing, but it was tough what we have to go through. And finally, this managing relationship with the parent company, Telekom Malaysia, as I said, Telecom wants all subsidiaries, because Multimedia University is under a subsidiary called UTSB, Universiti Telekom Sdn Bhd. And they have a uniform common policy for all subsidiaries. But the problem is, if we follow this common format, subsidiary policies across the board, we will have problem. I've given one example where if you want to send people to attend conferences and sebagainya, it will be very difficult if you follow the policy. Only the senior professors can go. So I have to do a lot of this negotiation and arguing with the company dan sebagainya, to the point that at that point of time, even some multimedia university staff was saying that we have a president who is very unfriendly with telecom dan sebagainya. And of course, there are telecom people who aid what I'm doing dan sebagainya. But you go back and ask MMU staff today, they now understood why I have to be like what I was then. So now they understand that when you don't have such a president who could stand to the forces within telecom, then at the end, one by one, the freedom is taken away, and then you just have to conform lah, because you don't want to have all this all this fighting and so on. But so that would be the problem. Next. I realize that I have 10 minutes left, so now I will go to and try to clear this quickly. So after I left MMU, after being there for 12 years, I left MMU December 2007. Then I was immediately offered to be the CEO of Unity College International, which is today City University in PJ there, in Asia Jaya Tube train station. So I was there to be the CEO for 11 months. But in that year, I was interviewed twice. First for the job of the VC of UTM, and the next was an interview for the VC of UM. After the interview for the job of the VC of UTM, the minister called me and say, well, I don't know who told him this, and I don't even think that way, but he said, "Because I heard you prefer to be the VC of UM, you know." So we will call the interview a few months later. So I didn't get the job lah, UTM, you know. But later I was called for the UM punya VC job. I was interviewed, and I still remember Tan Sri Jalaluddin, who was the chairman of the selection committee. He asked me only one question: what would you do to bring UM up again? Because in his eyes, UM was not already the premier university. And of course, I explained that I bring back academic excellence, I bring back superstars and so on lah. So there I was, I became the VC of UM for 5 years. When I went into UM, these are some of the issues that I saw there. Deadwood, resistance to change. There are very hardcore staff, students, you know. I still remember the percentage of staff who has a PhD in UM at that point of time, if I'm not mistaken, was 67% only, even though some of them has gone PhD and didn't get that. Okay, now the language competency issues, people cannot really teach well because their command of English or Bahasa Malaysia not good. A lot of UM staff at that time was talking about how great UM was, but they forgot that actually other universities have come up. Entrenched culture of mediocrity because they think they have always been good, but actually the culture of mediocrity was coming in. There was issues on work ethics. A lot of them say they are connected to this minister lah, to the prime minister dan sebagainya. And therefore, you know, as a VC, I have to respect and listen to them also. That's what they mean. The bureaucracies and the autonomy and so on. So these are all the issues, some of the issues that I have to face. Actually, the job of the VC of UM at that time was the toughest job. It was easier to set up multimedia university and fight telecom, but it is much harder to revamp UM lah. But like anything else, as I've mentioned before this, you have to face the problem head on, show your good intention, and you mean business, that you will not compromise on certain fundamentals, and you just have to do it. So for example, I just want to bring one example where I said there are, 300 staff who has gone to do PhD and didn't get the PhD. So I actually call all of them and I tell them, look, you all have been sponsored to do your PhD. Some of you have come back 10 years, 15 years, tak dapat. You have not got your PhD yet. I say from next year, I'm going to deduct your salary. Each year you didn't get a PhD, it will be 200 ringgit a month. The following year, you still haven't got your PhD, it will be increased to 400. And if you have not got in the next year, coming year, it will be 600. And so on. It keeps increasing. Actually, the staff union was really mad. It went to the newspaper. They wanted to sue me. They want to bring me to the industrial court. They say, it's not written anywhere that to be a lecturer, you must have a PhD. You only need a master's degree, you can be a lecturer. But I kept this instruction that keep cutting the salaries until they show they have the PhD scroll. And trust me, I was never sued. I was never brought to the industrial court. But a lot of people, I mean, those people who didn't like all this actually created a lot of problems. But yeah, man, I'm happy. But I think today the percentage of academic staff with PhD is 90 above, I think. But this was the situation when I went in 2008, many years ago. Okay, so there I'm giving an example whereby this is an unacceptable scenario in one of the leading institutions in Malaysia where so many people didn't get their PhD. So you mean business, you get it, or else you'll keep cutting. So by God's grace, nothing happened to me. but the thing changed. And I actually put a gentleman who himself was someone who didn't get a PhD, but later, because of hard work, that he got the PhD after 15 years, I believe. And I made him as the head of this unit to chase all these people. And I think I made the right decision, because somebody suggested that it's a big mistake to put somebody who has failed himself. And they suggested, why not we bring the best academic to lead this? I said, no. I want the person who has himself failed and being able to make good his position to be the head. And I think I was right lah. But unfortunately, this gentleman, the arwah lah, but he has done a great contribution to to push all these academics to get their PhDs. Okay, in order to bring into the top again, I have to introduce a few initiatives. So these are the initiatives in The number one is the KPI, and we call it the Standard Academic Performance Targets. And what is it? Here it means that we only count ISI journal publications, we look at citations, we look at each index, we do not count your conference dan sebagainya. Now there is a difference between arts and science, yes. For the arts, we require less number. But for the sciences, engineering, medicine, we require higher numbers. By the end of the day, everybody must be able to publish in ISI journals. And not only that, in order to help the staff dan sebagainya, I actually told the minister to give us a special budget, which I call high impact research budget. Where I said, if Dato' at that time was the Dato' Khalid Nordin, the minister, I said, Dato', you give me this money, I promise you I'll get into the top 100 within 3 years. But I know it's impossible to be done at that time within 3 years, because it requires many more years. But I promise him, I impress him lah, that he knows that I'm serious to do it. He said, Ghauth, prepare the paper, I put it to cabinet. And we were actually approved 590 million, okay, budget for high impact research. And that is the reason why we were able to do so many of these things. We go on to the next slide. Among the interesting things that I did, you see, nobody should ever say that, why we talk about ranking dan sebagainya. Hey, look, we have a transformation roadmap, and not only that, we have the Malaysian Education Blueprint. All these targets, in terms of ranking dan sebagainya, are all in those documents, So I'm not doing something out of my own thoughts. These are already laid out for the higher education of this country, and this is from the government anyway, from the Ministry of Higher Education. So please, it is in those documents. And I think if you are managing a university, it is best that if you can be competitive and try to get to the best position, because you get a lot more by being able to get into the top, and rather to be at the tail end, you'll be respected more, and industry will want to listen more to you dan sebagainya. There'll be greater respect for you. Next. And this is actually at the point when I left which is 2013, was not in the top 100. So actually I failed in my promise to the minister. But the great thing is that had the money lah, But by 2020, it was ranked 70. 2019, it was ranked number 87 in the world. Alhamdulillah, So I'm happy for that it has actually broken into the top 100 lah in the world, But I think the special high impact research budget did wonders to the system. And let me just point out that there is this publication which actually compares a few universities in the world, and then you have professors who kept telling us is the best, dah lama dah dia punya ranking and so on. But I say, where's the evidence? Where's the proof? You keep telling me is the best. Show me the evidence. Nobody can ever show me. But I found this graph which shows comparison from 1981 to 1996, how was in comparison to the others, and you will see, okay, if you see that the punya performance in terms of publication in SCI journals, it is almost flat, but in the early days, Nanyang Technological University was below and you all know where Nanyang today is. It is in the top 100 or top 30, I think, in the world today, But was there constant, and yet other universities, if you look at the graph, it was progressively going up. So I made a statement, look, has never reached the top position, was never in the top 100. But how come everybody's claiming that it's the best? So they were saying with the evidence lah. Okay, but I got into a hot soup with this because some senior professors say, oh, the VC of menghina is looking down upon his own university. But I was referring to this graph, Okay, I was very well aware that in order to be a top university, you must have three things. One, you must have high-performing, talented academics, talented students. You must have a big budget, and you must have the vision and the leadership. So these things must be there if you want to go to the top. And I think this is true. This is actually from a World Bank publication by J. Salmi. You can read it up yourself. So three things: top academics and students, big budgets, and strategic vision and leadership. This is extremely important. Okay, just to digress a bit, during my time as BC, I got the 590 million budget, special budget. These are all special budget. 150 million special budget for engineering, and 100 million for science-based faculty to replace all the outdated equipments and so on. Because of that money, we were able to employ 4 Nobel laureates to work with under the high impact research budget, which before that was never able to employ. So we had these people working with our researchers in the lab. Okay. Then we were able to produce highly cited researcher. You see the gentleman on the left, Professor Saidul Rahman. He was from mechanical engineering. But subsequent to that, we produced many more in engineering. The highly cited researchers. The other 2 gentlemen is UKM and USM. But in 2014, we have only one, Professor Saidul Rahman, who is a Bangladeshi. But we set the pace, and we have many more, and some of them have left also. This is what we are trying to actually create from all this effort. We were able to we created a scheme called Bright Spark, whereby any students who graduate with a 3.8 CGPA out of 4 automatically will be given a PhD scholarship. I created this too. So because of that, suddenly the number of postgraduate students, high quality postgraduate students increased drastically. Anyone with 3.8 or above, 3.8 or better, will get automatic scholarship. Again, this is from the high impact research budget. We were able to employ academic icons. Apart from the Nobel laureates, we employed in each faculty several top professors from around the world to work with our academics. Okay, so those are the things that I did in I'm coming up to last few slides. I was for a period of time in the private university, which is MMU. Later, when I left I was brought into the board of Sunway University too. So I'm quite well exposed to private institutions. And I've been very long in okay, being board member, SBC, and before that, STNC dan sebagainya. Times are very challenging. As you know, with the pandemic, I think it has hit the economy of all countries in the world, including our own country. The future is a little worrying. But please be aware that we live in challenging times where I know some private institutions, their salaries are cut or they are not paid salary. They have to reduce staff drastically because a lot of private institutions was very much tuition fee based. So that's why they are affected this way. Of course, public university is not so bad because the government is guaranteeing our existence. Cost cuts on facilities, amenities, and many for sale. Now, this is very challenging, and it'll be a good challenge for anybody who wants to show their leadership ability. How do you save universities dan sebagainya? If you're looking for a nice problem, a nice challenge, there are plenty today in this country. Okay, not only in the public institution, but in the private. Because at the end of the day, in the private institution, nobody guarantee your existence. Is your ability to bring students dan sebagainya in order to sustain the university. But is that really the model that we can go on for forever? I don't think so. So these are some of the challenges that we have today. Next. Just trying to share with you that as currently I've already even told the ministry that I promise that I will create a 1 billion ringgit endowment for UPM by 2022. Why? Because I think if UPM is to become the top university in Malaysia, they need this money. Actually, 1 million is the minimum. 1 billion is the minimum. They need a lot more. And I'm working hard on that. Of course, I hope none of you will ask me how I'm going to do that, because this talk is not about how to create endowment. Okay, but maybe in 2022, I will be willing to give a talk on this. What are my other personal KPIs? I want to set up a private specialist hospital. I also want to buy over and establish a large private university, and I want to venture into agriculture and food security for the sake of the nation. So these are my current challenges. Even though in this pandemic I've been sleeping a lot more at home, but actually I cannot sleep because thinking of all these problems that I brought onto myself. But these are just to share with you that, you know, top leaders actually survive on problems in their head all the time. So you never rest actually. Next. Thank you all for listening. I've done okay, 1 hour 10 minutes. So Prof. Nik Mairan, thank you for inviting me again. And I think the next 50 minutes we are open to question. I hope please don't ask me too difficult questions. Thank you.